Hello and welcome to the weekly Yes, a podcast where two best friends talk about their joint mission to say yes to life. I am your host, Jara Skagfjord, and co-host is my bestie, the amazing Kristin Guerin. On today's episode, Kristin and I talk about gossiping and how it can actually save lives. We talk about destiny and how it's impossible to make the wrong decision, and what to do when you feel like you're banging your head against the wall. For today's Fast Facts, I wanted to talk about Seiðr, or scythe, as we do mention it in this episode that I had a scythe session with a client. In a nutshell, Seiðr, or scythe, is Norse magic and witchcraft. Seiðkona, or scythe woman, means a powerful magical woman, seeress, and or a woman with staff. Imagine Maleficent in Sleeping Beauty or Gandalf in Lord of the Rings. Or we could simply say a witch. I have been studying and practicing the craft and tradition that is Seiðr or scythe for a couple of years now, and I've been offering it to clients alongside my tarot practice and modern shamanism as well. I will put a couple of links for you in the show notes if you're interested in those services or learning more about scythe in general. Anyway, I didn't want you scratching your head when you heard the word scythe later in this episode. Now back to our regularly scheduled programming. Here's our conversation. Enjoy. I am so obsessed with this mug. Incredible.
I'm so glad to hear that.
No, I use it for everything. I use it for coffee, I use it for cacao, I use it for tea. I'm like, I feel bad for all my other mugs because
sucks to suck.
Yeah. I don't use them anymore.
I'm honored.
Good. Are we ready for this?
Let's do it.
Okay. What did you say yes to this week?
I think autonomy. I think it's what I'm in the process of saying yes to, and I have been. I was listening to a podcast episode about the energies of Pisces season, which we're in now, and I'm a Pisces. And so it very much applies to me. And they were talking about how Pisces can get lost in other people because they're such givers, or the energy of Pisces makes us want to give. So right now that might happen for a lot of people, even those who aren't Pisces. And I was like, oh, that hits. I had a really beautiful opportunity over the last 6 weeks or so I met somebody who is dealing with right now things that I dealt with a few years ago, with social anxiety and boundaries and fear of relationships, fear of intimacy, fear of vulnerability. So things that I was, and it was such an incredible opportunity we were in very close quarters a lot, and I was able to really hold space for her and give a lot of direction, like based on what I've learned over the years, especially as on this spiritual journey that we're on, everything we've learned. And I was so happy that I could offer this, but that I was also given this beautiful opportunity. I received a mirror for where I was and who I now am. And it was almost like talking to an old version of myself, which was really beautiful that I was able to support myself from the past in supporting somebody else, which is also giving. Speaking of Pisces season, Pisces being givers. But it is, and it should be a give and take. And that was the whole point of the podcast. They were like, Pisces need to, in their giving, they need to also receive. That needs to be equal, and there needs to be balance there. And I feel like in that circumstance it was. I watched her as she's starting to navigate boundaries. This person, I watched her put up really strong, like wall-like boundaries. And I was like, I recognize that. I used to do that too. So I was like, good for you. This is the step on the path, right? That's huge that you're doing that. And I'm noticing myself now, coming back to me in the present moment, as opposed to me 3 or 4 years ago, or even just 2 years ago. I'm noticing my ability to just put up boundaries that don't have anything to do with people outside of me. It just has to do with myself. It just has to do with my own autonomy, my own integrity, my own interests and desires.
You know what's really interesting about you were almost mentoring this other person, or like seeing a younger version of yourself? I had a small opportunity to do that yesterday. I was meeting with a friend. I had a side session, like a healing session with a friend of mine, actually. And she was talking about how she is now very pulled to go on this path of helping others and healing others, and through, she's not sure what, but she's reading tarot, and she was like looking into other healing modalities and magical traditions and stuff like that. So I was almost being in a bit of a mentor position yesterday. unexpectedly. I didn't know that's what the session was going to be about. And it was so fascinating because some of the questions that she asked, I remember asking those exact questions to my mentors or to the people that I was seeking help from. And there were a few times where she was worried about this or that or asking about this or that. And I said, I think it's just so true for anything in life, not just this particular path. But I was like, you know what? Instead of giving her all of the advice in the world, you can try this, you can do that, you can do blah, blah. I was like, you know what? This is just a part of the path.
Yeah, agreed.
She had some fears, some doubts, some worries, stuff like that. I was like, having the fear, having the worry, having the doubts, I'm like, it's all a part of the path. It's not something that you need to rid yourself of or should rid yourself of. It's actually helpful. It's part of the path. It's part of the test. It's part of committing to this path. Sure, I could give you like a PDF, whatever, with like how to protect yourself, but you're not going to be able to fully protect yourself all the time. You can have energetic boundaries. You can learn how to set up certain parameters. You can learn how to ward things off. But at the end of the day, it also needs to come from the inside out. Like you need to just know who you are. You need to have that trust in yourself and your work. You need to build up integrity from within. And that's not something that you do in a week. That's something that just comes over time. Going through all of the fear and going through all of the doubt and going through the difficulties and making mistakes and doing all these things. And I didn't even realize it. Speaking of giving and receiving, so in me giving the advice or like the wisdom or like whatever, I was also receiving through that because I felt like what I was saying didn't just apply to her. It also applied to me in that moment.
It makes me think of so many things. The first is, I remember Laure Pochet, when we were first starting out and we were her spiritual children.
Truly.
What a way to say it. But I remember being in sessions with her as she was learning, right? She was learning from her teachers and we were learning from her. And I remember her saying to either me or you, but it's the same brain. So she told one of us and we told the other one. And she said, I get just as much out of this as you get out of this. Do you remember this?
I do.
And I wouldn't do it if I didn't. And now I'm sitting in that kind of energy being like, yeah, I'm getting just as much out of it as you are. I couldn't even fathom that at the time.
Yeah, because I don't know, maybe I'm projecting, but there's a part of me that feels like sometimes when other people are giving me something, I feel guilty because in my head, I feel like it's a chore for them.
100% agree.
You know what I mean? So I agree. It was hard for me to believe at the time that you're getting something out of this.
Because this was my relationship with people. Socially anxious. I always had to overgive because I was uncomfortable receiving. So I couldn't fathom at the time that one could both receive and give at the same time. That didn't even make sense. And then my other thought was, one of the things I heard in your little story there was, it's the journey, not the destination. It's my birthday's coming up this week, at the end of this week. And I've been in a bit of a rush in 2024. I feel like we're 7 weeks into the year. The first 7 weeks into the year, I have been nonstop going, trying to figure out my destination, like trying to, do you know what I mean? Trying to get to the end goal. And there were some things that had to be worked through there. It took me the first 7 weeks of the year to be like, oh no, not only is it not hurry up and be done with it, hurry up and be done and get there. That's not the thing. It's get there is death. Get there is not the goal. You don't actually arrive anywhere. Once you're married, you don't really arrive somewhere. You just have a ring on a different finger.
Okay, before I say this, when you said destination, before you finished the word, I thought you were going to say the word destiny. And then I'm like, wait.
As you were saying it.
Yeah, and then I was like, wait, destiny, destination. I was like, I never connected
No, me neither.
those two words, that like destination and destiny. I don't have any more thoughts on that, but I was just like, huh, and wrote it down.
I do. As you said that, I was listening to David Ghiyam, one of my Kabbalah teachers, speak the other day, and he was talking about, I found this so empowering. He said, as far as Kabbalah's belief, a Kabbalah thing is that any direction you take is the correct direction. So you could be deciding between Iceland or New York, doesn't matter. Whichever one you chose was the correct decision, and the creator, the universe, will conspire in your favor whichever choice you make. So you decide to stay in Iceland, great, universe is conspiring to bring you all of the stuff, bring you all of the blessings, all of the working through karma or tikkun or wounds or whatever it is. They'll do it there. No matter if you decide to go to New York, great, it's going to happen there. And the way in which, so no decision is the wrong decision. All decisions are the right decision. The only way to make a wrong decision is to not embrace it, not embrace the decision, to go in and keep looking behind you and be like, oh, I don't know. Did I do the right thing? You did. So stick with it. If you're not actually able to be with the decision, commit to it, be present, be grounded, and be certain. I think that's maybe the word is absolute, have absolute certainty in your decision and in the universe. Then yeah, now it's the wrong decision. If you're looking back.
Yeah. And if you have shame or guilt about it too, probably.
Yeah.
Keep looking over your shoulder.
So go ahead and make another decision. And if
Mhm.
that's the case, if you're feeling that guilty, that you can't be present, my God, and I don't know if he would agree with this, so now it's my words, not his. But if you feel so shameful or so guilty about that decision, and you're like, I moved to New York and I miss my family, then you better go back because the blessings are only in the present. So if you're not going to be able to be present, you got to be present there, then go back there. And trust me, if you're supposed to be in New York, then you'll deal with that, work through whatever that was, and then you'll get to New York eventually. And there's no gotta do it now, gotta figure it out. Because this is it. There's no destination, so you don't have to rush there. Do you know what I mean?
I really love this, that like your destiny, it doesn't matter the destination. It doesn't matter like where you are. Your destiny follows you because wherever you are, there you are. Someone said this to me once, be where your feet are. Just help you get back into the present. Just be where your feet are. I think that's really helpful. It took me, one of the reasons why it took me a while to be where my feet are is because of exactly what you were talking about. Like I kept wondering and worrying about, because it was such a huge decision and it changed my life so drastically that I carried this doubt about the decision and this guilt and almost shame about leaving my home country, my family, my friends, everything I knew. Like for years, I had these doubts and this guilt and this. And honestly, it's just in the past couple of years that this guilt has subsided. And interestingly enough, during that time, and again, everything is the way it's supposed to be. And I don't think I would change it because I learned so much about myself and about life and people and everything. But looking back on those years, it was really hard. I was just thinking, because you were like, oh, like you can't receive the blessings.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Wow.
I couldn't be happy. I couldn't allow myself to be happy with the decision that I made, with the relationship that I had chosen. I could not allow myself to be happy. And I think on some level, what you just said, that was the reason. Because I wasn't fully certain with the decision that I'd made. I wasn't fully committed, even though I had moved my like legal address, even though I had signed the marriage certificate, even though I had in theory committed. I had like on some spiritual level, I hadn't committed.
What was your yes of the week?
I said a lot of yeses to social gatherings, meeting with friends and going out. And I think honestly, even though I did feel like there were 2 points where I was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to leave the house. I just want to be in bed and feel sorry for myself. And I'm so glad that I followed through with every single one of those social commitments that I'd made. I had so many lovely, deep conversations. And these are all friends from different walks of life. Some of them I've known for over a decade, and the others, brand new friends. We've only known each other for a year. And one of them I met with, and we were talking about a bunch of things, and we were talking about people we know and stuff like that. And then I felt guilty for a split second, and I said it out loud. I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be talking about them. In my head, there's something that when I'm talking about another person, I get really anxious, even though I'm not saying anything bad about them. Like this thing of, I don't want to be caught gossiping. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be caught talking about someone or whatever. And she didn't think anything of it. She was like, oh, you're fine. Don't worry about it. We're not saying anything. It's not like we're shit talking anybody here. And then she sent me this video. I don't know if I sent it to you. It says in the video that gossiping comes originally from the word God-sib, as in God sibling. No, sorry, gossip means godparent. So it's like someone that you trust, someone that you can come to and tell anything, And it apparently, supposedly dates back to the 12th century, this term. And it's it's how women protect themselves. It's like gossip actually saves lives, because if you know something about someone, if you know that there's a person in society that is dangerous, or something happened between you and that person, and then you let all the other women know, hey, this guy, look up, be careful about him and stuff like that. So they would talk about people, they would talk about things that were going on in society, and this is how they protected themselves. And then, of course,
Yeah.
patriarchy redefined that whole thing as a bad thing and reframed this quote unquote gossiping as a bad thing. I don't know. I hear that all the time. Oh, women, like you're always gossiping. I'm like, I'm sorry. The men in my life are the most gossipy people. Like when men do it, it's called networking. But when women are doing it, it's gossip. Not to say that like gossip is always good. Sometimes gossip can be petty. Sometimes people are being very unfair to other people in their circles or in their group. Sometimes people do it to manipulate. Sometimes people lie. All kinds of things that are an issue with it. Absolutely. But when you are just like, okay, so here we are, we have these mutual friends and this is what's going on with them. And maybe it's good for us to know because next time I meet them, I know that they're in a bad headspace. So then it's not all bad. I sometimes feel like when I'm gossiping that I feel like I'm doing something wrong because that's like how it's been framed in my life. That like gossip is always bad. And actually, it's not always bad. It really depends on the intention, depends on who you're talking to and what you're talking about.
I've watched you shift and work with and work on your relationship with having integrity with your words for so long.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just very intentional about the way I phrase that because it looks different. There's so many different avenues. One of them has been gossiping for a few years now. I feel like back when you were working as a waitress in New York City, and that's really where this started, was you were like, at least that's when I remember it starting, was like, you were like, I don't like the way in which I'm communicating on the floor or while I'm working this job. And I want to change that. And I don't know what that looks like. And I'm going to just try something. So you said yes to, I think at the time you said yes to being like, I'm going to just not respond or something, right? Wasn't that like the first step? You're like, I'm just going to not respond if somebody tries to gossip about somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's
possible.
developed since.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been, oh my goodness, dude, that was like many moons ago. That was years ago.
And I think it was really important because at the time, what it was doing was just creating, it was just creating bad vibes. And I'm like, we can bond. Like, I want to bond through other means.
Yes.
If the only way that I'm bonding with you is through either gossiping or complaining, that's not right. Like, it's a whole different thing if I'm able to have very intense, deep conversations. Like, I can share my deepest desires and vulnerabilities and whatever with you. And sometimes we also gossip about the people we know. But that's not the main source of connection and communication. So I was just like, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. Like, I'm gonna stop this gossip and I'm gonna stop complaining because, again, being impeccable with your word. I just like
was the word you used.
Yeah,
impeccable with your word as opposed to integrity, but same meaning. But yeah, that was the word. Yeah. Also, it just reminds me of a Kabbalistic principle that I learned a few months ago, which was about having integrity, being impeccable with your word, in that whether you bring light into a situation or darkness into a situation, into a conversation, has less to do with what's said and more to do with the intention behind it.
Yeah.
So if you're gossiping, I really love this 12th century callback to like where the word comes from and the meaning and the significance behind it of the intention was to keep other people safe.
Yeah.
To be like, I'm telling you this because it's something that you need to know so that you can protect yourself if necessary.
Yeah.
I just went through that this past 6 weeks. There was somebody in our program who was really unwell. Was very unwell. And I didn't talk about it a lot, especially for what close quarters we were in. But I did, at times, I would just be with somebody and I would say, this person's name would come up and I would be like, just so you know, this is what happened between us. Or this is what, like this, she just did this the other day, or this just happened, or I'm pretty sure this person's unwell. Like just basically, and my intention was, keep your distance, stay safe, don't. And I'm here if you want to talk about it. Like this is a safe space for if you, and then often the person, I know, okay, I just had a weird, thank you for saying that. I just had a weird experience too. Like I thought I was crazy. That kind of thing.
That also. You come to someone with something as, what is going on with them? I experienced this. Am I crazy? Are they okay? Or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
And then that is
as
confirmed.
Opposed to, I'm going to gossip and, oh my God, did you hear what happened?
Exactly.
That's such a different intention. And that's not bringing light into the situation. That's really bringing darkness into the situation versus I need to vent. That's actually a thing too. That's not I need to get this out, or I want to change this situation. I need to talk about this thing that's going on, not to gossip, but to like, how do I move forward from here? Or what are ways to do it that are all infused? It's all about intention, infused with light. but might look the same. We need different words for this.
We do. We really do. Okay, so this is the second time we're going to talk about Simon Sinek now on this podcast. That's his name, right? Simon Sinek? He does this thing where he texts his friends, hey, do you have 8 minutes? It's like a code word for something just happened. I need to vent, or do you have space to hold? And usually, according to some research, once you've expressed yourself or once you've let it all out for 8 minutes, that's usually enough to shift how you're feeling. And you and I have just started doing that, which I really like. Hi, do you have 8 minutes? I'm not doing too hot.
I really like it a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I want to say it also sets, speaking of intention behind speech, literally, it also sets the intention of what this call is about. As opposed to being like, sometimes I'll call my mom a lot, or my mom will call me. I was just on the phone with her for 15 minutes yesterday, and nobody said anything of substance. And I got off the phone and I was like, what was that talk? What was it about? But it was also nice because I haven't seen her for a couple months. So it was just nice to just be there talking about, yeah, the beef stew smells really good. I'm making it. But it's very, if there's such a specific intention that you have and you have a very specific need, yeah, let me know right off the bat so I know how to show up for you right away.
And I like that there's a time parameter.
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
It's because, I don't know, sometimes...
Capacity, yeah.
Both capacity for the other person and also just for yourself so you don't start talking yourself into a loop. Like after those 8 minutes, we're done.
Sorry, it just makes me think of something you and I were talking about privately yesterday. Nobody heard these audios. And we were talking about setting intentions secretly. I don't think that's how I put it, but do you know what I mean?
You said, didn't you say unspoken intentions?
Unspoken intentions. That's so much better because it's not secret. It's just you're not letting the other folks in the room know that this is your intention. I was just thinking to myself, I was like, what is my intent? Like my intention? Well, for the week, right? What's my yes for the week coming up? And yeah, I think it is being like clarifying my intentions for all parties. I invited a friend to do something with me tonight. I'm going to go see this ballet, and I'd invited a friend, and I was going through a rough time, and I'd love to see him. Like it would have helped me to go through the rough time if I were to see him. I just invited him to come do the thing. This is now the second time in 2 weeks I've now invited him to do something with me with the intention of I want to bond and be closer to this person, not just do the thing.
Yeah.
Like I want to.
It's not about the thing.
This person. Yeah. It's not about the thing. It's about being with the person and like I would receive comfort from this. It would help me. I didn't say that. I just said, do you want to go do this thing with me? Oh, let me think about it. No, I don't. No, I don't really want to. And I was like, you're not getting. Ben, he's a male friend. You're not getting that I needed my intent. But of course he couldn't get it because I wasn't speaking my intention aloud as opposed to calling you or texting you, hey, do you have 8 minutes? I'm in pain. Mm-hmm. It's like, great. I know exactly what this is. And yes, I have the capacity for that. Or no, I don't right now. How about in an hour?
I think sometimes this can, another word for this would be just, I don't know, expectations. Maybe. Yeah. Like you're expecting something. And I think sometimes going back to women, men dynamics, I think sometimes because we are so programmed to be attuned with everybody else around us and in our family and in the room, and they are not programmed to do that. So sometimes we expect them to be able to do it for us. And then we get upset when they don't. Because I'm like, I am anticipating your needs a lot. I am reading between the lines of what you're saying a lot, and you don't seem to do the same thing, and that kind of bothers me because it feels like I am putting more effort and energy into this relationship than you are. Why are you not anticipating my needs? Why are you not reading my mind when it's something that I do so well for you?
Yep.
We had that all the time, Yadin and I, it created a lot of friction. It created a lot of friction. I'm like, what do you mean you can't read my mind? I'm confused because I can read yours. So this is unfair.
That's also about boundaries too. Do you know what I mean? That's another thing I'm doing where I'm intentionally not reading people's minds. I was with a friend the other day getting coffee and it started to get chilly and I had a jacket on, but he was just wearing a short sleeve shirt. Another man and male friend, not a male friend who just don't get it. But it was going to get chilly. We're sitting outside. And I've got a jacket and I'm comfortable. And I look at him and I was like, is he cold? And I'm trying to figure out, and I was like literally looking for goosebumps on his arms. I was like, should I invite him to move? Should we go inside? Should we go into the sun? Should we go? And I literally was like, quit it, Kristin. He's an adult human being. And if he gets cold, he can tell you he's cold and ask to move.
Yeah.
And I was like, you don't have to take care of this 30 some odd year-old human being who can advocate for his own body temperature. So I just stopped myself and I was like, he'll tell you. Yeah. And he
Good
did.
for you. Yeah.
And he did. Yeah. And so we moved into the sun anyway.
I think that my yes for the week needs to be towards the other things in my life. Okay, I need to preface this by
Wow. Okay.
Okay, this sounded so vague, very mysterious, and I'll give you the context. So I've just really been in one area of my life. I've been very unhappy and like unfulfilled and a little confused and a little just like I have been banging my head up against this wall now for a few months, and the reason I'm doing it is I am trying to figure it out. I am trying to figure out how to make it better. I am trying to figure out how to so I am in this room. This is how I see it. I am in this room, and in this room there are just there's limited amount. There's a certain kind of resources. It's a very specific kind of room, and this is what the room looks like. And I keep banging my head against the wall trying to make the room better, or trying to wish that the room was different. I'm trying to look for a secret exit way, or I'm trying to I don't know what the hell I'm doing in this room. And a lot of my energy has been going into that. And a lot of my frustrations and a lot of my resistance and friction. And honestly, I was having a rough time mentally because I felt like I really needed to figure this out. I really needed to get out of here. I feel like I have to start from scratch. It's like a whole thing that's happening in my career. So my solution to that was okay, I will just, maybe I'll start doing this. Maybe I'll start doing that. Maybe I'll take a class in this. Maybe I'll find a new skill in that and whatever. And all of that, all of those possibilities or all of those micro decisions that I was all of a sudden putting on myself, I was putting onto myself decisions that I don't need to be making right now. You know what I'm saying? I'm just banging my head against the wall. Maybe I do this, maybe I do that. Oh, but if I do this, then I have to do just creating a plethora of decisions all of a sudden for me to make for no reason, really. Because everything is actually fine. And I've just been doing not well because of that, because of something that is completely made up in my head. And because of the stories that I'm telling myself in my head of, if I want out of here, it's going to be really hard. If I want out of here, I'm going to have to start from scratch and it's going to be so hard. And it's going to be all these things that I am creating in my head. There's not another option out there that's better or equal than what I've got right now. That kind of thing. I had an epiphany. I had an epiphany yesterday. So what's happening right now is I am trying to stubbornly work through something or figure out something that doesn't want to be figured out. Because if it did, I would have figured it out already. If this wall wanted to be broken, it would have broken already. But I'm not even making a dent. And I don't have to abandon everything. I don't have to start from scratch. I don't have to uproot my entire life. I don't have to turn everything upside down. What I can do is turn around, leave the room, and look at all of the other rooms that are currently in my life. If I'm seeing my life as a house, there's so many other rooms that are either open or that I've already unlocked. I've already found the key to a lot of these rooms. If nothing is happening for me in this room, there's so many other rooms that I can visit right now. And they're already here. It's stuff that's already here in my life. I have my relationship. I have my friendships. I have a couple of side projects. There are so many other things that are currently present in my life, seeds that I've already planted that I can just focus on while nothing is happening here. Chances are that once I leave the room, something will start to move. But if I'm not finding the fulfillment or whatever it is that I'm looking for, whatever I'm expecting from this room, if I'm not finding it there, go to another room. It doesn't have to be forever. It can just be temporarily and see what happens there. It's sometimes we feel where there's the most friction or where there's the most things are really not moving and you just want to keep pounding on that instead of just things are really not moving. All right, so let me do something else and see if that can give me the sense of movement or whatever it is that I'm looking for, or fulfillment or inspiration or whatever. So that's what I need to say yes to this week, is just to the other rooms in my life. Your life is actually fuller than you think it is. You just have to pay attention to the things that you haven't been paying attention to. Going back to the garden metaphor of, this tomato plant isn't growing, or whatever. If you would look at other places in your garden, you know what I mean? But I want the tomato. The tomato isn't here. But there's an apple from the apple tree, the tree that you planted. So many metaphors happening with this. But essentially I'm I'm going to stop trying to figure this one thing out that I can't figure out and go enjoy my life elsewhere.
Yeah.
Go and nurture the other things that are also here in my life.
I love it. Yeah, the metaphor that was in my head is actually similar in intention, in that you said the garden metaphor is the tomatoes not ripe, but the apples ripe. Either of them would give you energy, right? If you were to eat, you just need food.
Yeah, exactly. You just need sustenance. You just need, exactly, nurturing.
And I was thinking, like, okay, if it's a drought, then the water wheel that creates energy, electricity, isn't going to work, right? And it's like, okay, there's also a windmill over there, and it's really windy. Oh, let's go get electricity from there. Yeah. And it's interesting that both are about energy. No, but that's ultimately what you're longing for.
Yeah.
Like, you literally.
Yes, it's energy, it's life force. It's when I'm trying so hard to get it from this one place when I'm like, you planted so many seeds, and there's so many things that are actually growing and blooming and like ripening in other places, and you're just not looking there. And it's also, I think, about timing too. It's if you don't look there, you might miss it. Like the fruit might go bad.
Yeah.
So
that apple's going to rot if you don't pick it soon.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I can sometimes be like an all or nothing thinking, where if something isn't working, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater, that kind of thing.
Wow.
Have to start all over again. Have to start a new life in a new land. What are you talking about? There's so many things here that you could do.
Such an epic, olden thing to say, have to start a new life in a new land. This isn't working.
Anyway, it's been real. We will see you all next week. Goodbye. That concludes this week's episode of The Weekly Yes. You will find us on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube, and you can follow us on Instagram as well at The Weekly Yes. Send us your yeses for the week or any story of when you've said yes and it really changed your life to theweeklyyes@gmail.com. And who knows, we might feature your story in an upcoming episode. Keep saying yes, and we'll see you next week.